Is the GOP doomed to victory? Hi, this is Bill Whittle. Now, I'm Scott Ott. Bill has no idea what I'm about to ask him. Bill, we've seen stories from NBC News lately that shows that the GOP is screwed. That was in the headline, GOP screwed, because the Trump popularity numbers don't look good. And in general, some pre-midterm election polling looks bad. Internal RNC poll says that complacent Republicans could hand the majorities in the House and the Senate back to the Democrats. Meanwhile, in the Texas state Senate race, Republican Pete Flores beats the Democrat, who was a former state representative as well as a former U.S. congressman. Pete Flores now is going to sit in a seat that hasn't had a Republican keister in it since 1879. Flores was backed by Governor Greg Abbott, by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, by Senators Ted Cruz and John Cornyn. The Republicans rallied to his support. He's a former game warden, a retired game warden, and he is now, as long as November's balloting goes as they expect it to, the Texas Senate will have a GOP super majority. So, Bill, what, if any, lessons can we learn from now State Representative or State Senator Pete Flores' shocking victory in a 139-year-old Democrat dynasty district?
Well, the first thing we can learn is thank God for Texas. Honestly, I'd heard, the stories are legendary. Their legislature meets once every 2 years for 2 weeks or something like that. And was it you was telling me that the governor's talking about removing the traffic cameras from
Yes.
automatically take your picture? Yeah, that's like, actually, we're going to remove some tyranny from the state of Texas. And just the fact that Texas is there and that I happen to be an honorary citizen of Texas is a source of great comfort to me. But back to the bigger issue. Needless to say, historically, the off-term elections are usually pretty bad for the people that won the presidency. That has certainly been the pattern. There's one or two exceptions. So just simple historical patterns in people's, disappointment and so on and so forth favors the Democrats in this one. I've never been one of these guys who really understood the statistical angle of how many seats are at risk and so on. But if I had to give you my guess, I would say we're likely to lose the House. And if we lose the Senate, then we're in actual trouble. But I don't think that's going to happen. Let's just remember a couple things.
You think we will lose the House, but we will not lose the Senate? Is that what you're saying?
If I had to make a bet, yeah. But nothing surprises me anymore. And we can all remember that Donald Trump was down by 7 points or something the night before Donald Trump became, president-elect of the United States. And so shading the polls is not something that they're either ashamed to do or unfamiliar with. I don't like the news about the Republican internal polls as a general rule, but that may be a reflection of people's general disgust towards pollsters and maybe a result of general disappointment in the idea of the Republican Party. I know that a number of people, and I'm one of them, who saw when Donald Trump was elected, thought that, okay, now we got 2 years to get going because we have the House, the Senate, and the presidency. We got to move. And it's been a constant source of frustration bordering on anguish for me to see so much of the Republican congressional membership, if not dragging their feet, then actually digging in and throwing out anchors to make sure that these reforms that Donald Trump had promised and wanted to bring don't happen. We did a segment on this not too long ago where we talked about the idea that it really is inside the Beltway versus outside the Beltway, and it is much better for individual politician to have his party lose as long as he retains his seat. And I suspect that this is pretty much endemic, and I suspect this needs to be cleared out. And it's good news from Texas, because I was worried about Texas. And the main reason I'm worried about Texas is there's an awful lot of Californians moving to Texas. And they're moving to Texas because Texas's economy is booming. California's is dying. Texas is a free state. California is a socialist republic. And the problem is that the socialist, communist, lunatic leftist Californians say, hey, our state is costing us a fortune. Why don't we go to Texas where they're doing things right? They go to Texas and they start voting like Californians. And that is a real worry. But with that aside, Scott, I just don't know. There's a certain certainly the left is motivated to go out and get Donald Trump. The question will be, will the Republican conservatives in the country understand that to lose the House means that we don't get anything else done, and to lose the House and the Senate means that a lot of stuff that was done gets undone. And the first thing that gets undone is President Trump, because I suspect if we lose the House, we're going to see impeachment proceedings brought, before they're all in their chairs.
Now, the race in Texas, by the way, that everybody is really watching, because few people were paying attention to Pete Flores' race for the Texas State Senate, is the actual U.S. Senate race between Republican Senator incumbent Ted Cruz and his Democratic challenger, Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, who is, despite the Beto name, not of Latino background, but actually of Irish extraction. My son went to see a rally that Beto O'Rourke did last week in I think it's in Frisco, because it's right in this area called Legacy West, and he showed me pictures that he took there. My son's a professional photographer, and the place was packed, and O'Rourke stood up there on stage for an hour and sweat through his shirt, and people loved him. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz is making remarks about how the Californians are trying to turn Texas into a place where, we wear clothing made out of hemp, and we're going to ban barbecue. Bill, the earlier polls of registered voters showed that Beto O'Rourke had a little bit of a lead, and now the newest polls of likely voters show that that's a much tighter race. Is there a way to save Ted Cruz from himself?
Well, I don't know if Ted Cruz needs saving from himself. I was a big supporter of Ted Cruz, and I remain one. I think he's one of the true actual conservatives who understand it. Needless to say, there have been a few things that Ted Cruz does that I didn't like, but of all the things that drive me absolutely insane about the particular line of work I'm in is an email saying, "Oh, Bill, I've been following you for 12 years, and then you disagreed with me on this, so you're dead to me." I mean, it just drives me out of my mind. So look, if Ted Cruz, just the fact that Ted Cruz is in trouble is not a good sign. If Ted Cruz goes down, that's a real bad sign. And one thing that we're not seeing, Scott, that I think is just my perennial dream, and I just, every election cycle, I think it seems to get less and less likely. We don't seem to be supplying the kind of candidates that the people want right now, and what they want is they want regular people, but they don't want lunatics. We had, I think, after the Tea Party movement in 2010, the Republican Party ran a bunch of people who were popular because of the Tea Party movement or so on, or darlings of this conservative movement that I was proud to be a part of. But they weren't very good candidates. On the other hand, we have guys like John Cox, who's running for governor of California, and as I've said before, who's going to certainly get my vote. But he comes across as just as political a person as there could possibly be. I suspect that the American people are looking for realism and authenticity the same way they're looking for it in their entertainment these days. This is why we're doing this show like this and not throwing in all the bells and whistles. I probably should have just shot it on an iPhone, because authenticity and believability and credibility are what sells now. And as I like to say, once you can fake that, you got it made. The whole thing comes down to, what is the Republican Party about? That has been a question that you and I and Steve and a bunch of other people have been asking ourselves for 10 years and can't seem to get a decent answer on. Certainly there's so much self-sabotage going on, as we discussed with William Crystal and stuff. And so there's that. But the one thing I think that gives me some hope for this coming November is twofold. Number one, Donald Trump's supporters were not much represented in the polls. However, I think that the big indicator, if I was going to watch something, I would watch the number of people at a rally and the enthusiasm of the people at a rally. Donald Trump was pulling in entire stadiums and turning away 30,000 people. Hillary Clinton couldn't fill a gymnasium with 80 people. That's a big, big indicator. And if it turns out that the Democrat rallies are bigger and stronger, that's something to be really worried about. And then the second thing, of course, is the great unknown, and that is that Donald Trump's been so effectively demonized and the Republican Party's been so effectively demonized that a lot of people are going to say, no, no, no. Let me just put it this way, Scotty. I know a lot of conservatives in California. I know a lot of them. And I think I am one of 3 that are registered Republicans. The rest of them are all independents because people will check these kind of things to see if you ever want to get a job.
Because employment, that's right.
That's right. So, and by the way, in California, at least in Los Angeles, independent means Republican. So the question is going to be the economy. And as Bill Clinton famously and correctly said, it's the economy, stupid. And if the Republican message isn't sharpened and between now and November focused on one thing, and that thing is, here's a number 1. This is what we were getting in terms of growth every year under the Democrats. Here's the number 4. Here's what we're getting under Republicans. We're actually almost getting 5. So if you like money and jobs and opportunity and the ability to control your own life, you vote for the Democrats, you get this. You vote for the Republicans, you get this, and probably that. And if people would just get down to the simplicity of the message, then I wouldn't be worried. I'll just throw in one quick caveat from something I know a little bit better, and that is the California race. We discussed this a little bit too. Gavin Newsom is running for governor. He's the mayor of San Francisco. There is now an app for the iPhone that charts the locations of the biggest concentration of human feces on the sidewalks so that the San Franciscans can walk around these areas. And honest to God, I would never, ever, ever be seen with Gavin Newsom. I would never do a TV commercial. I'd be outside his office. I'd be outside his office every day as a candidate if it were me with the app saying, hey, Mr. Newsom, guess what? Now you don't want to go down this street. Now you want to go down this other route because apparently there's less human filth on the streets of your city if you go this way. Do you have any comment on that? And which one of these anti-feces apps do you use, Mr. Newsom, when you're getting around your city? That's the kind of thing that we just seem incapable of doing, Scott. We cannot ask the simple questions that need to be asked. We get bogged down in all of these policy and wonkish kind of things that nobody cares about and that they're masters of. And we just be asking questions like this. What are you going to do to Texas? Beto. Irish Bandito. What are you going to do? Are you going to govern the way that the Republicans? Are you going to vote rather the way that the Republicans voted to make Texas as prosperous and as booming and as free as it is? Or are you going to vote the way that other Democrats vote? And I would ask this question every single time, and I'd wait for him to put himself on an answer, because if he puts himself to an answer, he's impaled. He either says, no, I'm going to vote like the other Democrats that ruined California because I'm a Democrat, or he says, no, I'm going to vote just like the Republicans and keep Texas prosperous. At which point you start asking yourself, well, what the hell do we need you then for?
So, ladies and gentlemen, you can expect to see Gavin Newsom's volunteers going door to door with clipboards, and Bill Whittle for governor volunteers going around the streets of San Francisco with shovels and buckets and mops. Thank you for watching Bill Whittle Now. Bill's hot takes on current events of the day. It's made possible by the folks at BillWhittle.com who are members there, and we invite you to become so. To follow us immediately and not miss a single one of these episodes, click that little bell, as Bill calls it, the Liberty Bell notification button at YouTube, and enjoy more of this. Share it with your friends and loved ones. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.